This question is what things I dislike about being in a foster care system by one more one. Right? The link to the video will be in the description below. Go in second match. So let's into this question in 3, 2, 1.
So, long time no see. I haven't seen him on the inside of a car for a long time.
Yeah.
Kind of been dealing with a bit of content burnout and what to talk about, which is bound to happen inevitably. And I've also been focusing on a lot of other things, other hobbies, just playing guitar, doing a bit of martial arts, and still keeping up with the gym and work.
Yeah.
While I'm off for uni for summer. And I thought today I'd talk about one of my most viewed topics, which is foster care. And I've already talked about it in a good light, which was the benefits to foster care video that I did, which performed quite well and grew most of my channel. But I thought today I'd just talk about the worst parts of foster care. So for people who are new around here or haven't seen my foster care video, I was put into foster care at the age of 7.
Wow, really?
And I've been in 5 different foster homes,
Yeah.
all a varying amount of time. So the first 3 foster homes were 1 year respectively each,
Yeah.
and then I was in a longer term foster home with my actual family for 5 years, and then I moved back to my hometown for another 2 years with a stranger family. And
Yeah.
starting from the beginning, in what I didn't like was just how isolated things were, because you're being moved around so much.
Yeah.
And especially because I wasn't in one constant foster home, because typically foster care, it's not like adoption. Foster care is usually, you're not going to be with the same family for, say, I don't know, 10 plus years. You might probably get moved around. You might be with a family for 3 years, then another family for 8 years, and another 2 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Because obviously I think foster care is a more like a short-term solution for different stages of your life. Adoption's more like when you actually want to treat them like your own kid. I mean, foster care, obviously they want to treat you like their own kid, but
Yeah.
it's sometimes harder because foster care is usually for kids who are a bit older, say like, well, I went into foster care at the age of 7, but when you're thinking of adoption, most kids go into adoption very young, say like probably like before or even 5 years old. So it's a lot easier for the adopters to get to know the child more and treat them like their actual kid. So yeah, being moved around so much kind of gets a bit isolating, especially because I didn't have my first phone until 16. When I was trying to make friends, it just felt a bit hard to do so, because first of all, I didn't live close to any of the schools that I was going to, mostly because foster care is like a really demanding role at the moment, and it was when I was younger. There's not a lot of foster carers around, so that meant finding one close to the schools that I wanted to go to, well, that I was going to without. So that's the thing, I was very sentimental about the school that I wanted to go to. I wanted to stay in the school. I didn't want to move schools when I had to move foster homes, so they had to try and find a foster carer that was willing to drive me a far way to keep me in the same school instead of changing schools, which I appreciate they did for me in the end, because I think if I moved schools I would have had it a lot harder. So yeah, I was very isolated because I'd lived really far away from the schools that I went to. Obviously I had no form of communication. The only communication I'd had with my friends was actually in school at the playground or in between lessons. So that kind of made me like a class clown, because like I just try and impress my friends whenever I could in person, because there's no way I can talk to them outside of the class. I didn't have my phone, I didn't have social media, anything like that. I didn't have internet access, so yeah, I just kind of had to be like the funny kid in class and try and make everyone laugh and make everyone know me more. So yeah, that's the first part. It's very, very isolating. Most of the time was spent in my room, and I did go out and make friends outside of school, so like kids in the neighbourhood and such, but it never was quite the same, because they were usually a lot younger than me, maybe like 2 or 3 years younger, And like when I was in like high school, maybe like year 7 or year 8, between the ages of like 12
Yeah.
and 13, when I was making friends with these guys, like they would be like 10 or 11, and there's just kind of a bit of a difference in interests, and like
Yeah.
I was just a bit more grown up, so I couldn't really like, I don't know, develop socially as good as my other peers, because they were hanging
Wow,
around
really?
kids usually their own age, so they could
Yeah.
I don't know, get on interests easier, and I don't know, just have a bit more social maturity and do more interesting things, like stay out later and that. So yeah,
Yeah.
first point, very, very isolating. Now the second point is that everything is very, very monitored when you're in foster care.
Yeah.
I was, obviously, since there was no internet access until I was probably about 13, there wasn't a lot of monitoring going on. Like, by monitoring I mean there wasn't a lot of privacy. My room didn't have a lock, stuff like that. Like, I just didn't feel very secure or private at all. I felt like everyone was always watching me. And obviously when I got internet access, that got worse, because
Yeah.
there was like internet trackers on everything I did. Obviously, like, I wasn't like a rebellious kid, or I wasn't like searching up weird stuff, but still, like, having like everything you do monitored online was a bit strange. And my internet access was also limited, so like I couldn't like access social medias or stuff like
Wow,
that.
really?
Internet access. I could watch YouTube and download games and play games online, but I wasn't allowed to have social media or anything like that
Wow,
until I
really?
was probably about 16.
YouTube?
So that obviously ties into the isolation part of things. But yeah. I just feel like everything I did was very heavily monitored.
Wow.
I didn't like get time to myself. I did get time to myself, but I was kind of just like shut in my room, because I felt like that's the only privacy I had. And I think my microphone just fell off there, so I think the rest of this video is probably going to be worse audio quality, since that just fell out. But yeah, it was just really not private. Yeah, I think because the microphones fell out, I'm going to record the rest of it on the way back, because I don't want the audio to suffer. I don't know why it's fell out, but I'll continue this video later. Apologies about that, I don't know why my microphone fell out. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. But now for the second reason. I'll go on to the third reason why I didn't quite like foster care. I mean, I don't hate it as much as some kids coming out of the foster care system, because I've done quite well for myself, so
Yeah.
I have to kind of attribute some of that success down to how rigid the foster care system was. But one of the things that I didn't really necessarily like was how often I actually got to see my actual family. So my visits to my actual family, so I was in foster care 24/7. So this means like I'm obviously living and sleeping in a stranger's house, basically, that isn't my mum and dad's. And obviously my mum and dad being divorced meant I saw them separately instead of sort of seeing them together. So
Yeah.
and obviously I'd see the rest of my family all in one. So basically what would happen is that I'd see my dad separately by himself. I would then see my mum and my grandma after. And then after that, I'd see my grandma and granddad, aunts and uncles on my dad's side.
Yeah.
So there's 3 separate visits, and these visit days, where I'd see them all at once, would typically happen I'd say once every 2 months, I think they were.
2 months, yeah.
So I'd see them for 2 hours each. I think with my grandma and granddad it would be 4 hours, because it was such a big family. So
Really?
I'd see probably like about 10 of my
That's
family
good.
on my dad's side.
Yeah.
So yeah, with my mum and my dad, they were 2 hours each separately, and my grandma and my granddad and all the family on that side would be 4 hours. So in total, I'd be seeing, this sounds really depressing, but in total, I'd be seeing my dad in the flesh for 12 hours
Yeah.
a year, which is pretty crazy.
Wow,
And
really
it was the
crazy.
same with my mum. I'd see my mum in the flesh for 12 hours a year.
Wow.
Obviously, six 2-hour sessions, and with my dad's side of the family, I'd see them for 24 hours a year, and that was really hard. Obviously, I think I don't think it was because of how far away they were, because obviously for the majority of my foster care I was actually living in Leicester, so seeing all my family in Wigan was about a 2-hour journey in the car. So obviously I think that was the reason for the limited amount of contact, but it's not because my family didn't want me to see it's not because my aunt and uncle living in Leicester who were fostering me didn't want me to see my family more. It was just because of how strict the regulations were, of how often I could actually see my family. So yeah, that's something I didn't really like, how restricted I could see them. And for like the majority of my foster care visits, there'd always have to be a supervisor whenever I'd be with my mum or my dad. Not with my grandma and granddad's side of the family, but whenever I'd see my mum or my dad separately, I'd have to be under supervision. Either that would be another family member, such as my grandma with my mum, or if it was my dad who I'd just see by himself, it'd usually be a care worker. So sometimes that wasn't the best, because it kind of just felt like I was being watched.
Wow, really?
I was being judged, and my dad was being judged for what we were talking about and stuff like that. I didn't feel like I'd actually be comfortable in that environment, because it would just be someone watching over you. And even though, like, obviously nothing bad happened, like, they just have to be there for some reason. I guess that's just the policy of the foster care system in the UK. So yeah, that's point 3. I didn't really like that. And I guess I'd say, I'm not sure whether this is necessarily foster care as a whole, or whether it was me or the houses that I was put into, but I don't feel like they push me enough to actually be a better man, or have some sort of role model in my life. They kind of just, this is point 4 by the way, they kind of just let me like do whatever I want. They didn't really test me or
that's
involve
good.
me in anything if I don't want to. It was kind of just like, you have to come with us and do what we ask you whenever we want. But apart from that, you can just stay in your room and do whatever. And that's kind of what I did. And there was no like pressure to do anything productive. Like if I had a day off and I didn't want to do anything, like they just let me sit in my room all day and like play on my DS or play on my Xbox.
That's good.
And I think that kind of definitely did affect my development, because I wasn't actually doing anything productive, and that kind of made me very lazy, boring, a bit soft.
Lazy boring.
It didn't really make me into much of a man. Obviously, like with an actual role, like a father figure or like a role model in your life, if you had one, you usually get tested and you get shown new things, and you kind of have to get dragged out and do things. And that didn't really happen when I was in foster care. I was just kind of like left to my own devices. So I kind of had to build discipline, go out my comfort zone and try new things myself without having to have any like external support or an extra like push in the back, let's say. So yeah, that's kind of another reason. And that kind of meant I wasn't very adventurous. I just do what was comfortable, which is basically just sitting in my room playing games all day.
But they give no day.
Definitely in a pretty bad position. And yeah, it meant that like when I turned 16, like my foster carers weren't really too bothered about me getting a job, because obviously like they just provided for me like financially with food and stuff. And if I wanted something like out my own money, like a game or something like that, they just give me pocket money for it. If I did chores around the house, such as like washing up or I don't know, walking the dog or putting the bins out, something like that. So yeah, that's number 4. And if I had to say number 5, it'd probably be how untrustworthy the foster care system treats you as. Like they treat you as someone who's like very untrustworthy, basically. So basically I wasn't allowed to stay in the house by myself, even
really?
probably up until about 17 years old, I'd say. I don't know, that's not too bad. Like most kids probably aren't allowed to stay in the house by themselves until they're like 15 or 16, but it's kind of like how much I was dragged everywhere. Like I was dragged shopping. I was dragged pretty much
Wow.
everywhere. And that kind of annoyed me because I was seeing kids my age like staying at home. Well, I was hearing. I wasn't necessarily seeing, but there was kids in my school who were allowed to stay home, have friends around. They were allowed to go out shopping. They were allowed to stay out late,
Yeah.
and I wasn't trusted with that. So
Wow.
when I got older, I was kind of like, am I allowed to do this? Like, this feels so foreign to me, like being a bit rebellious or doing something that necessarily isn't what I've naturally been allowed to do. It's like when I started like going out late for the first time in a while, it just kind of felt weird to me because I never had that experience before. I'd never really been taught that, and I think it's just I think a lot of it's down to like the foster care system treating you as a reflection of your parents, which is actually quite sad. Like obviously, if someone takes you into foster care, it's because your parents usually aren't in a fit state to look after you, and
Yeah.
they kind of just view you as, I'd say, as someone who is a reflection of the parents, like
Yeah.
someone who can't cope or isn't trustworthy to do certain things. It's quite sad. But when I started getting a bit more naturally trustworthy, maybe say when I was about 16 or 17, and I was allowed
Yeah.
to actually stay at home by myself and do things myself, that's when I actually grew, which was crazy because once people actually started to treat me like an adult and allowed me to push myself out of my comfort zone,
Yeah.
even though they weren't the ones nudging me in the back to do so, I'd be making the most progress. So in a way, the foster care system was actually really holding me back in a sense. And yeah, that's kind of like the 5 things I have to kind of say about foster care. Like I said,
Yeah.
it's not all bad. There are good parts about it, which I discussed in another video that I'll probably link in the video, this video. I can't see. I'll link it in this video. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to really say about foster care. I don't want to like milk the topic of foster care too much because there's not much to talk about now. I've discussed like what my experience was, the good things about it, and now the bad things about it. So
Yeah.
I think the next video I'm going to do is probably like a long form guide of such, similar to the building the body one, which I quite enjoyed doing that, recording in different locations and like recording my workouts. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, I'm going to try and do less content but more quality in future. I think that's kind of my sort of gist. I like working on bigger projects.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for watching and stay curious.
Mm-hmm. There was 4 things I dislike about being in a foster care system by Karan Moran. The link to the video will be the description below. Go and check them out and drop a like if you like. And comment on below if you want to see more reactions like this one. And subscribe if you're new and click the bell so you can be notified when I upload. Bye.